Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel. And tonight was the night, Tuesday, November the 15th, 2022. Donald Trump officially launches 2024 U.S. presidential elections. Now, all of you here on the BuzWeaver channel, you guys are shrewd. You guys are focused. You guys are sober, common sense thinking people. Already know what we saw during the midterms is only going to be turned up to 11 now that President Trump has announced his presidency. And you guys already know. We don't even have to go into the details because right now a lot of these news agencies have just posted some of their reports, and this was just as of the speech. So there's anything really current right now, but we'll probably get into something current maybe a little later. But you guys know already, as President Trump has announced, there was a couple things in there that raised some eyebrows for sure, particularly when he talked about the death penalty for drug users. I'm sure there's probably going to be a little bit more nuance to that because, of course, when it comes to Biden, the White House always walks things back for him. Maybe we'll get a little more clarity on that because that was extraordinarily punctual in its delivery, particularly since he quoted from Xi Jinping, who, of course, they're in China. You know, obviously they're communist and authoritative and basically tyrannical. So they are going to associate Donald Trump with Xi Jinping when it comes to drugs or the war on drugs here in America. It's going to be an interesting talking point. But overall, his speech was on point. He didn't do a typical off-the-script rally sort of delivery. This was not incredibly too difficult for him to deliver if you consider, as we look at these pictures that you guys are very aware of. Here in the United States, this is what he talked about right here. I'm sorry. Here, let's try this. Let's try this. Wait a minute. Come on. See, this is what he talked about. And this is exactly what people can relate to, as we have talked about here on the channel. People have to get gas. People have to get food. People have their retirements, their 401ks, their IRAs. People see their credit card statements. They see interest rates going up, gas going up, their food going up, and it's going to continue to go up as President Trump says. And we know it's going up more because we saw here, as we talked about on the Friday vlog, this was from Friday from Fox News, eggs are up, butter, flour, coffee, milk, fish, canned fruit, frozen pies, turkey, and potatoes. All up, and it's only going to continue to go up. So, are Americans paying attention? Are people in foreign countries paying attention? Because as Trump said, if we restore our energy independence, we will be able to provide oil and natural gas to foreign countries that need it. They don't have to pander and depend on countries like Russia or Saudi Arabia or other nations that are sometimes at odds with our Western culture or with Europe and the EU and the UK. So we'll be able to then provide that, helping the country. And of course, he focused a lot on helping the country. Many different areas, many different aspects. Perhaps we'll break that down into different segments. It is going to be very interesting how YouTube rules are going to change as well. I'll be very curious to see how everything ends up after this video, because of course this will be a topic that we will talk about for the next 2 years at least. And that is, of course, President Trump, what's going on for 2024. So I'm excited to be able to be here another 2 years of presenting this sort of commentary for you guys. But it is very challenging on YouTube because they don't like Trump. And it isn't necessarily YouTube. It isn't necessarily YouTube. It is the activist groups out there. And we're gonna transition to that right now because we already know, you guys may remember, arrest in D.C. as activists take to the streets to support Minneapolis protesters. They're going to be back. BLM, Black Bloc, and Antifa are all going to be back in action. Absolutely going to start happening. This is what happened in D.C. People seem to forget May 29th. They seem to forget what happened on May 29th. Let's get the exact date. May 30th, or May 29th, when the article is written the next day, 2020. Burn the flag, chanted some participants as a group of young activists soaked an American flag with lighter fluid and set it ablaze. Where was all the news media coverage of this when this was all going on? And here we even have a map of where all it was going on, where all the disruptions were. You guys already know what happened in Portland and Seattle and in Minneapolis. We already know all that. Kyle Rittenhouse, for example, the incident that happened with Kyle Rittenhouse is coming back. Nearly two-thirds of voters say progressive activists will respond with violence if Trump wins re-election. However, just 38% of U.S. voters think conservative activists will respond with violence if Democrat candidate Joe Biden wins. And they didn't. Where was all the protests when Joe Biden won? Where was all of this white supremacy? Where was all the flag burning? Where was it all when Joe Biden was elected? There was none. Next to none. Or I'm not aware of any particular events that happened after Joe Biden was elected. And of course, the Democrats will say, oh, that's because everyone was incredibly satisfied with the results and how everything turned out. Oh, sure. Yeah, right. Sure it was. We clearly already know what's going to happen. Limo set on fire and 217 arrested as police used tear gas on activists during Trump's inauguration. Where was the coverage here? Where was the 24/7 coverage? Where were the Democrats? Where was the media covering these things that were going on after Donald Trump's election? Where was the tolerance? Where was the fairness? Where was the equality? Where was the equity when President Trump had his inauguration? Of course, Biden had just a handful of people essentially at his inauguration because, of course, the pandemic that was going on. Where was all this attention? Dump Trump. Look at all the signs and placards and things that were going on during that time. Setting things on fire. And, of course, the famous Screamer girl. I believe it was a female. I don't want to misgender her. I believe it was a female. But you remember the screaming meme that's been going on now for over 2 years. Of course, we have covered it here. Coverage of Trump delivered greater share of negative assessment than coverage of previous presidents. Look at President Trump. 5% positive. 5% positive. Obama, 42 positive. Bush, 22 positive. And then Clinton, 27. 62% negative. Nearly as much as adding up at least two of the presidents together. But nonetheless, you guys already know we've got all the receipts. We kept all the receipts here on the BuzWeaver channel. I keep all of you guys informed. You know, I'm not a professional journalist. I'm not a professional reporter, not a professional announcer. I do a little voiceover work for channels, but certainly not a professional there. I don't claim to be an expert and know everything. I just read news, interpret it, and then give you my conservative opinion. Biased as it may be in certain circumstances, I will admit it. And when people call me out on doing something wrong, I try to address it, not run away from it or try to make excuses. Maybe I'll have a little excuse here and there for one reason or another. But as we see here, coverage of Trump's first 60 days delivered greater share of negative assessment than coverage of previous presidents. Now, this is the first 60 days as opposed to the total of presidential coverage. And as you can see here, Trump had 62% negative. Just under half of U.S. adults say early coverage of Biden administration has offered mostly positive assessments. Percentage of U.S. adults who say they see assessments of the Biden administration in the news. Mostly positive, 46%. About an even mix, 39%. Mostly negative, 14%. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we have said, as we say here on the BuzWeaver channel, the Democrats, working alongside the mainstream media, tech giants, and activists, will work again together. The cabal, or the establishment uniparty, as we have many names for them, and they have been identified. We've covered it here on the channel. Even the Department of Homeland Security, as we covered that particular story, as well as our good friend Molly Ball in her admission, spiking the football in her haughty, arrogant way of saying that they, of course, organized to then fortify an election for a desired outcome. Wink, wink. We already know what that means. We already know what it means, ladies and gentlemen. So I would be interested to know, down in the comments section, go ahead and click that like button as well to help out the channel, because you know what's going to happen in the next 2 years here on the BuzWeaver channel as I try to keep you guys informed, try to keep you guys notified, try to keep you guys up to date. We work through the chaos, the tumult, the confusion, the disorder that they create, and you better believe they will be creating I have to honestly say, excuse me, I would have to say that the media has to be ecstatic. They have to be incredibly happy right now because they've got 2 years of Orange Man bad news. I mean, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. They made bank off Trump, not to mention Twitter. Twitter was actually failing. And then Trump got on there, and then everybody just coalesced on there. It came together, the activists, the protesters, or what I refer to as the establishment uniparty, the cabal, as Molly Ball calls it. That's right, guys. So here we are. If you thought the midterms were bad, and they were, the leak from the Supreme Court, do you guys actually believe that could have potentially been from a conservative justice or a conservative aide? If it had been, do you not think the Democrats would have jumped all over that, considering that abortion is one of their key pushing points during the midterms? That was astounding. Think about it. That was the first time in American history that a leak came from the Supreme Court. And then we had the second most historic event happen in American history, where a former president was raided by the FBI. We had 2 extraordinary events happen in the midterms. I am wondering, really thinking about what's going to happen in the next 2 years now that President Trump has announced. The world is changing. You guys may have seen my story on the Russian rocket missiles that went into Poland and unfortunately killed, I believe it was a farmer and a farmhand, or 2 individual males. It was a tractor of some sort. He was out doing his work or whatever he was doing, or whatever they were doing. It looked like a tractor. I could be wrong, but they were in a vehicle of some sort, and they were killed by a stray Russian rocket or whatever. We'll see what the outcome will be. But I'm not anticipating NATO doing a whole lot, really not. And of course, Trump touched on China, North Korea, his involvement with Europe, NATO. Of course, I don't recall whether or not he talked about NAFTA and then the conversion to what his brand of making America great again was here in the United States. It eludes me at the moment. But nonetheless, guys, what an exciting night for me as a commentator, because I know we're going to have a lot of news, a lot to talk about in the next 2 years. So it's going to be very interesting. So thank you for your guys' support, all of you here on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, DTube, Odyssey. If you haven't already, guys, follow me, because there's going to be more to come, more interesting things going on. And appearing there on the screen, that's going to be the channel icon for here on YouTube, for you guys following on YouTube. You guys can click on that to subscribe, as well as to select notifications to let you know when there's content here on the channel. Thank you so very much, and I will see you all in the next video.